Welcome to this edition of Access Together. These shows are made possible through the combined efforts of Shelby County Schools and GHS-TV. The shows are hosted by the members of the community and utilize the staff and facilities of Germantown High School. If you would like to watch our live stream or get more information about these shows, log on to our website, ghstv.org. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the following presentation.
Welcome to Let's Talk Money. My name is Harvey Cook and this is my co-host Kelly Bolton. We thank you for tuning in as we have the distinct pleasure of hosting our community's foremost business and community leaders. Our guest today is Ned Canty, who's General Director of Opera Memphis. Ned brings his past career as an actor to the stage again as he draws people to the opera stage. In addition to this role, he was recently elected to the Board of Directors of Opera America, an organization that promotes opera worldwide. We are honored to have Ned with us as he shares his business strategies to bring the arts to Memphis. Welcome.
All right.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
Good to be here.
Talk to us a little bit about your background.
Oh gosh, so grew up outside of New York. Initially was in theater, wanted to be an actor. That's what I studied in college, and immediately after I spent about a year as an actor and realized that the last thing the world needed was another pretty good actor. So I moved into directing theater, and then sort of really stumbled into opera. Got sucked in by a fellow I was working for in the mid-90s and started as a freelance director. I took a short break, semi-break from opera for about 5 years to run the New York Television Festival. And that was what I was doing before I came here. And I got here in 2011, so I'm coming up on my 7th anniversary.
We're glad you got sucked in.
Yeah, indeed.
Ned, why don't we start off and have you define opera?
You know, it's funny, we talk about this a lot, and you know, everybody thinks about opera in a, not everybody, but most people think about opera in a very specific way. They think about a certain number of works, you know, La Boheme and Carmen, you know, the pieces that a lot of people know, and often they think about not even so much what's on stage, but what's in the audience. You know, they think of the tuxedos and the top hats and whatnot, all the sort of old cliches of opera, or they think about the fat lady in the Viking helmet sort of thing. So that's what a lot of people think about it. It's a much broader thing, obviously. The definition is pretty simple. It's a story told with words and music working together. So, you know, play is words, a symphony is music, a ballet is dance, or is, you know, motion. Opera brings all of them together to tell a story. When I use that definition, a lot of people say, so that sounds like the definition of musical theater. And I say, yes, exactly. Really, there is no difference artistically between those two things. There are a lot of differences in how they are produced in America, in that at a certain point, about 100 years ago, one became nonprofit, opera, and one became for-profit, Broadway. So one became very, you know, much more interested in entertainment and drawing in audiences, and the other was less shackled to that. And there are good and bad parts on both sides, but you know, you can look at a lot of Stephen Sondheim's work. You could look at a piece like Les Mis, which is essentially an opera. You can also look at a lot of pieces we do, like Gilbert and Sullivan, which are essentially musicals. So, you know, these are the pieces that became American musical theater. So the definition has a lot more to do with what people expect, what they think they're getting into, rather than what things actually are. But at its most basic form, it's a story told with words and music.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about the history of opera in Memphis, and then about Opera Memphis?
Sure. So opera in Memphis goes back to the founding of the city. Touring troops that used to crisscross the U.S. Have been coming here since the 19th century. And in fact, one of the interesting things about Memphis is there's also a great tradition of African-American opera in Memphis on Beale Street. So Robert Church, in addition to the blues, was bringing opera singers to Beale Street. William Grant Still, one of the greatest African-American composers of all time, spent time on Beale Street playing piano while he was a student, essentially, paying his bills before he moved to New York and became, one of the greats. So opera goes way back. The things really started to pick up when the Metropolitan Opera began touring to Memphis. They used to do a national tour. They would come once a year during Carnival, Cotton Carnival. They would do 3 shows back to back, and that was the basis of most of our current long-term audience. They grew up going to these Met performances. A lot of our board members especially, their first experiences were seeing the Met. And what's great about that is it means that our audience has literally seen some of the greatest singers of the 20th century have come through. Opera Memphis started in 1956, and seemed, there are different stories. It's hard to find, real facts. A lot of the same people who were involved in Memphis Open Air Theater, some of those other groups were involved in getting Opera Memphis off the ground, some of the folks involved with the Beethoven Club, et cetera. And it started out really as almost community theater, community opera, a lot of local singers. It grew fairly quickly. This audience that got used to the Met wanted more opera, and Opera Memphis stepped in to produce pieces and start building that audience. And the two audiences fed each other for a number of decades. At a certain point, the Met stopped touring in the 80s, and Opera Memphis expanded to try to meet that unmet need. We just celebrated our 60th anniversary. So we've been plugging away at it for that long, and we're continuing to grow and expand.
Ned, what are some of the financial challenges of opera now, in general, and more specifically to Memphis?
Sure. There are a lot of them. And if I had I know what the challenges are. If I had the answers, I would right. Be consulting all over the world. I would say the number one challenge for any art form, opera as much as any other one, maybe even more so, is that there is so much more great art available at a very low price point. It used to be 30 years ago, if you told somebody that you were going to stay home and watch television, they would think you were uncultured, or they would think, oh God, you're really going to watch, the Beverly Hillbillies instead of going to see the blues or some of the great artistic offerings the city had. But today, you can stay home and you can watch all of the great movies ever made. You can watch television shows which have Dickens-level storytelling that are beautifully shot, that are great art, indisputably great art. So people have just such an array of options, and that's not even to get into video games and our phones, all these things that you can do. So honestly, the competition is just is astounding. And unlike a lot of industries, advances in technology do not necessarily make it less expensive to put on an opera. Some things do. Projection technology, for instance, allows us to have virtual scenery for some shows. That is a certain amount of cost savings. But as with symphony, as with ballet, the fact that what makes it special is that it's live means that there is a baseline cost associated with it, because you have a lot of people involved in creating the work. So, those two things, the competition from so many other options, and really the core inefficiency of any live art model are the dual challenges.
We're going to have to take a short break now, and when we return, we'll continue our informative discussion with Ned Campton.
Art program here integrates all the disciplines.
Teachers and students have a very close connection with one another, and that's how we work and communicate.
It's completely creative that they get to essentially design their own lessons.
I think it's great to be a part of this program because you get to have a very close relationship with your teachers as well as your peers.
Making art is self-discovery, and the world without art is a world without heart.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Money. If you are just tuning in, I'm Harvey Cook, and this is my co-host Kelly Bolton. And today we have been talking with Ned Canty, who's the General Director of Opera Memphis, to learn more about the operations and advancement of this wonderful organization. Ned, y'all got some terrific programs that you've started in the last couple of years. I'd like to ask you to talk about, first of all, give us the name of those programs, tell us what they are. And I understand they've been copied, a lot of them nationwide, and so what's behind all that innovation?
So, our core productions, our Masterwork series, the operas, Carmen, fully produced operas, we do those at the Germantown Performing Arts Center, right just down the road from here. We do the Midtown Opera Festival, which is smaller works, chamber works, pieces that were written for smaller venues, smaller forces. And then we have 30 Days of Opera, which is what launches our season. We'll be launching in a week from tomorrow. We'll be opening with Exposure 901 and at the Guest House at Graceland. We'll be launching that program. Basically, 30 Days of Opera is for the entire month of September. Every day, somewhere in the city, we do at least one free performance. Most days we do two, some days even three, depending on the nature of the performances. We launched that 6 years ago. This will be the 6th year. And it was our attempt to take several things, several challenges we had, several programs or fun things that had been done by other companies or by other arts organizations, and expand on them and make them fit Memphis, really tailor them to fit Memphis. And that is almost the opposite of what the company used to be. Opera came to Memphis because it was foreign, because it was fancy. Hugo Dixon, with his wonderful British accent, brought opera to Memphis, brought the Met to Memphis. And when a very successful British man who's cultured and sophisticated tells you to enjoy opera, you do it. But it was because it was not from Memphis. And so with 30 Days, we really tried to make the attempt to say, well, how do we focus on the Memphis part of our name, the Memphis part of Opera Memphis? And initially we were inspired by something called National Opera Week, which Opera America does. And we started talking, well, what if instead of doing one free performance during that week, which is what they ask companies to do, what if we did 7? What if we did a whole week? And the more we talked about it, the more we realized, you know what, no one would notice. It would be a lot of work, but no one would notice. It's Memphis. We need to show people we mean it. We need to show them, that it's grit and grind, not to be too glib about it. But we thought if we can do this for 30 days, if we can really give this gift to the city and show them that we mean it, show them that this is an essential part of who we are, then it might have some impact. And what it's done over the past several years, it's done a huge amount, but it has allowed us to go into every neighborhood, every zip code in the city and reach populations, neighborhoods that are underserved, that wouldn't have access to art, especially given the challenges we have with public transit in Memphis. It has also served as a great marketing tool. The best advertisement for opera is having an opera singer 8 feet away from you singing Puccini. That is very hard to argue against, and it's allowed us also to demystify it a bit, to bring it into everybody's everyday life. And so we've had a lot of people come to the opera through 30 Days of Opera, and it's done a huge amount for our national profile. We've consulted with other companies about it. We were invited by the National Endowment for the Arts to fly to Washington and give a presentation to the National Arts Council, the NEA, and members of Congress about the program. That was 2 years ago. I now sit on the board of Opera America, but really that is through 30 Days and what that program has done. And there are many companies that have consulted with us and asked us for advice on how to make it fit their city. There are other companies that have launched 40 Days of Opera or 60 Days of Opera or 7 Days of Opera, which doesn't sound really that impressive to me, but just sort of used it, and as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and some of them have been very successful with it, others not so much. You know, I think you need to value what it is and what it means. I go to almost every 30 Days performance. I go to every one that I can, and because that is as important to us, to me, to do those performances as any fully staged Puccini opera we do.
And are those in a theater? Are they outside, or?
They range, they're everything. It ranges from 6 kids in a library in South Memphis to a couple of thousand folks at the Levitt Shell. We do some indoor, some outdoor. We do children's opera. Sometimes we'll do, maybe an hour of programming. We like to stand on the corner of Sam Cooper and Parkway and sing to commuters at the end of the day.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we'll be at the Germantown Festival. We will sing the national anthem before the Wiener Dog races, and then we will sort of wander around. We do a lot of what we call walk and sing, where we just we have a little portable piano or a melodica or a ukulele, and we'll wander around, and people will sometimes follow us, and otherwise they'll just have a sort of drive-by opera experience. We sing at the dog parks. We sing anywhere they won't chase us out. we will come and sing.
Well, let me ask you, you're talking about Opera Memphis, and then you talk about opera company, and then you say we. Can you, is this opera company, is it a group of people? Explain kind of how that ties together, because people hear about opera company, but what is an opera company?
Sure, that's actually a really great question. When we talk about Opera Memphis, I guess the organization is a nonprofit company that our mission is to inspire, entertain, and educate the people of Memphis and the Mid-South through the art of opera. So we have a staff of 8 now. So we have a staff of 8, we have a board of 23, a board of directors, and we produce all of these events. So we hire both local singers and out-of-town singers. We rent space, we build costumes, and we produce the show. So unlike, say, the Orpheum that brings in Broadway shows, we actually produce the shows. But unlike the Symphony, say, or Ballet Memphis, we don't have artists on staff year-round who do the performances. So it is the company. When I talk about we, I usually am talking about the staff, the board, the 501c3 that produces things. But we have so many people in Memphis, so many choristers and singers who have done so many shows for, some of them for 20 years, 30 years, that family, that Opera Memphis family is significantly larger than that. And one of the things that has been most enjoyable for me in the job watching happen is I have been freelancing in the field for over 20 years. I know a lot of folks, a lot of them come and will do a show here, 2 shows here. I've yet to meet one that doesn't want to come back because they feel welcome, they feel embraced by the city, they have a great time while they're here, they love the audience. So it does sort of start to feel bigger than just our staff over on Wolf River.
Ned, we got just a couple of minutes before the next break. A lot of people, actually we only have 30 seconds,
okay,
so we'll start on this. A lot of people who don't know opera, they only know what they've seen on TV. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about how it's different, what they could expect, and maybe we can do that also after the break.
Absolutely.
You know what, I'm going to cut you off now. We're going to take a break now, if that's okay, and when we return, we'll finish this discussion.
I think the instrumental music program here at Germantown High School is special because of all the things that we'll do throughout a year. We start the year doing marching band, and very quickly we move into concert band. We provide the orchestra for the spring musical. We just have myriad things that we take part in throughout the year.
My favorite part of being in the band is probably all of the different kinds of musics we play.
We have a woodwind ensemble, or a brass, a jazz ensemble.
All those different opportunities create a place for students who excel in different areas. I think that diversity allows us to be one of the most unique programs in the area.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Thank you again for joining us on Let's Talk Money. Today we've been honored to have Ned Canty, the General Director of Opera Memphis. And with just a little time left, we want to jump back in and finish our conversation. We were talking about what can, let's say, a layman expect from opera versus what they might see on TV.
Sure. You know, generally opera is used as a shorthand in commercials or whatnot for either something that's boring that people don't want to be at, or for, it's often used to signify rich, evil people. So if you're a supervillain in a comic book movie, you very well might be listening to opera. It happens all the time. Or a serial killer, something like that. Very few members of our audience, so far as I know, are supervillains or serial killers. I think a lot of people expect it. A lot of people worry about fitting in, you know, what do I wear? Really, things are much more casual. You know, we always say dress for the night that you want. So if you want to get dressed up for date night, great, get dressed up. But if you wear, you know, khakis and a polo shirt or jeans or shorts and flip-flops, nobody's going to look at you sideways. I'd say anything that would get you thrown out of a Bennigan's, you probably shouldn't wear to the opera, but other than that, you're probably safe. I think another big thing, you know, people know that a lot of operas, the sort of main stage operas that we do at GPAC were written in Italian or French or German, but they don't realize that about 20 years ago, most opera companies, ourselves included, started doing what are called surtitles. So we have above the stage a screen where we project a translation of everything that's being said. So you can follow along, you know why they're singing what they're singing, not just that what they're singing is beautiful or moving or whatever. And that, for me, was a big discovery. That was one of the things that allowed me to move into opera and feel very much at home, was knowing what they were singing about. That was very important to me. I think that there was a stereotype about opera singers. It's what we now call park and bark, you know, stand downstage center with your arms out and make a lot of noise. Ham and cheese acting. You've got ham and cheese, you know, kind of thing. That is, you know, 40 years ago, 70 years ago. Opera singers today act. The training they go through involves acting and dance. It's very similar to what you know, to what a musical theater performer would go through. And because Opera Memphis is run by a director, I consider storytelling them as important as any other part of it. So we really go for something theatrical, very clear, moving storytelling, and focusing on the parts of the stories that make them connect to anybody alive today, make them relevant to anybody alive today in the 21st century.
Well, what do you have coming up this season?
So 30 Days of Opera launches on September 1st, and if you go on our website, you can find a full calendar of every performance that we'll be doing. We then, in October, will be doing our first main stage opera. That will be La Traviata. That is a piece that a lot of people have seen pieces of it without realizing it. If they've ever seen the movie Pretty Woman, the scene where they go to the opera is a scene from La Traviata, and the Pretty Woman is loosely inspired in some ways, as was